Details.
Thank you very much. On the line with us right now on the Comcast Business Hotline, Beyond Fast, a good friend, Mr. Adam Schefter. What's up, Shefty?
Good morning, guys. What's going on?
Just hanging out. First off, how are the dogs?
Dogs are good. Thank you for asking. No issues, thankfully. Knock on wood, and we always breathe a sigh of relief when that happens.
Yeah, that was awesome, Shefty.
They are full participants in practice, is what you're telling me.
That was a week ago, huh? That feels like 2-3 weeks ago. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
No, Shefty, great to have you on with us again. Per usual, we have our first outbreak here in the NFL. COVID-19 positive test. Tennessee Titans. They shut down the practice facility. A couple of options are on the table if they have to push things back here. What's the latest going on with Tennessee right now?
The latest is that they're waiting for overnight tests that are not yet in this morning. They'll be in later this morning at some point in time. I think that will give us the next sign and indication about where this process is at and how the league attacks it and addresses it. If there's no more positive tests, great. Then they go on, and they're shut to Saturday, and my understanding is that they want to and intend to play on Sunday. I think that they have discussed and considered the idea of moving the game to Monday or Tuesday so as to do more testing, more contact tracing, and to give the Titans, I think, an extra day of practice before they would have to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there's no doubt that this is an issue. Now, let's say there are more positive tests. Let's go to the negative, dark side, which we hope doesn't happen. You know, what happens then? And I think maybe you talk about postponing this game and shifting it to their bye weeks. I think maybe that would be the first option, and we'll see if there are more positive tests. Again, we'll keep our fingers crossed that there are not.
Would there be any chance for would there be any chance for another bye week for these teams if they do that?
I don't think they're going there. I think what they're doing is that the first bye week would be the option if they had to cancel the game eventually, which again hasn't even been discussed. So I'm just fast forwarding here. I think maybe they could always switch the playoff scenario to win-loss percentage as opposed to just wins and losses like it normally is.
Wow. Okay. Because I know baseball talked about doing something similar as well.
Again, I don't even know how did baseball do it with all those cancellations? What did they do?
Well, they wound up making them up. Yeah,
they ended up making them up, but it was one of the ideas that was entertained by Major League Baseball in terms of using the winning percentage over the wins and losses, which is what I believe they did also in 1981 during the players' strike.
Yeah, well, if baseball didn't miss any games, I would think that football would figure out a way to somehow get this done. Like they want to get in all the game. They want They want there to be a 16-game season. They're determined to make that happen. How they do that, we'll see. Again, it's as it was described to me, it is a quote-unquote evolving situation.
Okay, understood. Now, the other interesting thing here, speaking with Adam Schefter of ESPN, is that the Titans are supposed to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who then play the Eagles in a week from Sunday. So, so essentially, what could happen is the Steelers and Titans play on Tuesday, possibly, and then the Steelers have to turn around and play the Eagles on Sunday.
Well, again, I don't know that Tuesday is viable.
Okay.
But again, I heard Monday yesterday being considered, and we'll see. Again, they want to and intend to play it Sunday. They're determined to do it. I think, and if they can't do it, then I think they'd want to do it Monday. I don't recall there being a Tuesday game with a team turning around and having to play Sunday. I mean, it could happen. They could make them do it.
I just know that the Eagles played a Sunday night game that was supposed to be on Sunday night. It was the Joe Webb game, as we know it here in Philadelphia against the Titans. That was moved to a Tuesday night game, and it was towards the end of the season. I remember that.
Huh. Yeah. A Tuesday. I don't remember. Wait, wow, that's interesting.
It was a snowstorm in Philadelphia, and the game ended up getting pushed back to Tuesday, unfortunately.
Yeah, well.
So that happened. But, no, Schefter, I appreciate the insight as far as that goes to move along. So the NFL feels like they have something in place here to be able to play this game, barring any more positive tests.
Well, but that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like barring, of course, know.
Yeah, right.
And we don't know because there are 3 players and 5 other people, and the person who had it, I think Shane Bowen, the Titans linebackers coach, was the initial individual who contracted the virus, and I think he flew to the game. And I think that may be how it spread, but it's interesting because the people that had it was a defensive lineman, Dayton Jones, it was a linebacker, Bo Brinkley, and it was a long snapper or a tight end, long snapper Bo Brinkley and a tight end Tommy Hudson on the practice squad. Like it wasn't even like, oh, the 3 wide receivers had it. Oh, the 3 linebackers. It was not that. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Speaking with Adam Schefter, ESPN, of course. Now, Shefty, we had talked a lot in the offseason about hopefully Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz being in their 5th year together. They would have an advantage over the rest of the NFC East.
Yeah,
well,
big advantage so far.
Well, that's just what I'm saying.
They gained a half game, Shefty.
They gained a half game with a tie, which always feels weird, but nonetheless, they got a tie. Why do you think, on a national scale, when people talk about Doug Peterson and they talk about Carson Wentz, why does it seem like we are experiencing regression with both those guys as a play caller and as a player this season?
Well, I think what you're going to see talked about Doug Peterson is reflected in what happens with Carson Wentz. And when Carson Wentz doesn't take the next step, then certainly Doug Peterson's not going to be talked about like that. If Carson Wentz had taken the kind of step this year that, say, Kyler Murray or Josh Allen had, then people will be saying, "Well, look at the great job the Eagles did with him," and that hasn't happened so far, right? As we talked about last week, and as I said on Monday Night Countdown, when we talk about the great young quarterbacks in the game, Carson Wentz is no longer included in that conversation at this time. He's just not. We talk about Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. Do you ever hear Carson Wentz mentioned in there anymore?
No,
I don't.
Unfortunately not.
Shefty, we're such a quick-hitting society anymore. Everything has to be right away. And then the names you just mentioned became really good quarterbacks right away. But looking back on it, I was thinking of maybe John Elway, whatever. Do you remember quarterbacks that simply took a few years to get going but then did become really good quarterbacks? Meaning, is there a chance that Carson Wentz still can be that?
Oh, yeah. I think these things sometimes are a little cyclical, and I'm trying to give you an example of a guy. Jared Goff last year wasn't playing great, and this year is playing very well, and maybe had as good a game as he could play on Sunday at Buffalo against tough defense.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a guy. Ryan Tannehill is a guy who basically washed up in Miami and has thrived in Tennessee. So it does happen where guys can play better from one year to the next. John Elway was a guy that is true of, but I will say this, and I've always found this intriguing. I remember growing up, and I remember there being I don't know if it's a phrase, a stereotype, a perception, a thought, a belief, whatever it is, that a quarterback in the NFL needed 5 years before he could be good. 5 years.
Yeah, right.
I grew up with that. It was embedded in my thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was my dad or friends or I don't know where that came, but I remember everybody always saying that. Maybe, me reading the newspaper as a little boy and reading that, but it was always when you were young, quarterback needed 5 years before he was good. And somewhere over the last decade or two, that went out the window. And I think that went out the window with the evolution of offenses in college and the way that they began throwing the football more and more in college and the way football became more of a passing and scoring sport, which wasn't the case necessarily when John Elway was starting out in the league. And so I think the quarterbacks' growth schedules have been accelerated in recent years, and it's no longer 5 years. I think a quarterback, if he's picked in the first round, is given 3 years. 3 years before a determination is made. Mitchell Trubisky is now in his 4th season in Chicago, and he's finished there. He's finished there. There's no future in Chicago for him anymore. And so the timeline has moved up. Quarterbacks are performing earlier, and I still think there is time for Carson Wentz, despite his struggles, to be great again.
Yeah, we're certainly rooting for that. We because a lot of the guaranteed money that's there will put the Eagles in a tougher position than they're already in to try to move on from them. So a lot of people are hoping they just work it out, and Carson works it out as well. Now,
I do think it's just a slumping kind of thing. It's a confidence kind of thing. It's a mindset kind of thing of him putting too much on his shoulders. Injuries factor in. Mojo's not working. I get news for you. By the middle of the season, I'm not telling you it will happen, but by the middle of the season, he could turn around and be the Carson Wentz that everybody was so excited about for a long period of time.
We will certainly be rooting for that, Adam Schefter, and we're hoping that happens. To talk about the defensive side of the ball, there is a need at the safety position here in Philadelphia. Jalen Mills hasn't looked great in his transition to that role from corner to safety, filling in for Malcolm Jenkins, obviously. Earl Thomas still out there. There was the knock on the door, and you reported that when it came to the Texans. What's the latest on Earl Thomas, and do you know if the Eagles have made a call for him?
The Eagles have not made calls on him, to my knowledge. The safeties that are out there, I think Tony Jefferson is in Indianapolis right now. Earl Thomas visited with the Texans. There's some safeties, but again, if you're on the street on September 30th, whatever today is, there's a reason you're on the street. I mean, teams aren't letting good players sit on the street, and they need help. And there are enough people that suffered safety injuries over the last month or so that have added more players. So I've not heard Earl Thomas connected to the Eagles, no.
And I know I made a promise to ask you about this almost every time we talk to you. Any developments with Zach Ertz and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, it's funny you ask that. Again, you get a lot of calls during the week, and his name came up, and I was educated in a way that I didn't realize before. But again, I think it was the Eagles that came to him initially. Also, we should point out that they wanted him to redo the deal for cap purposes. So I think back in the day, he helped them out by doing them a favor. And so he was put in a situation, I think, where more years were added on at their request. And so I think that's part of his argument now that, when he wants to be taken care of, they may not be reciprocating the same way in his mind.
So the headline is that Schefter says Eagles and Ertz are arguing.
No, I'm not saying they're arguing at all. I'm just saying that they have different perspectives on this.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that Zach Ertz is a great player. And part of the reason he's got 2 years left is because he was trying to be a good teammate, a good citizen, and help the Eagles out of their cap situation that they were in. And so, that's why I think he feels like he should be taken care of. Like, his deal would have been up, I think, by now if he wasn't trying to help out the team. And the Eagles, by the way, I think approached him, not him going to them.
Right.
Interesting.
So there's some details here that just help you color in the lines and fill in some of the details.
So, in other words, the Eagles went to him and said, "We want to give you this contract," and he said, "Great." And they said, "Well, we want to put a couple more years on the end of this."
I think they I have to go back and look at it. But I think they did that, right?
No, I mean, I remember being surprised at a 5-year deal. I remember when the deal came out a few years back that I was a little surprised by the length on the contract, especially when you take in consideration what would be happening with Jason Kelsey's contract, what could happen with George Kittle and all that stuff. So when you look at all that, it is interesting that the Eagles would pose it or structure the years in that way to maybe save a couple of bucks down the line.
Well, as I understand it, Zach was helping out at that time and doing them a favor. And so the favor is such now that I'll bet he probably wishes he hadn't done that and that his deal would have been up. And Travis Kelce's deal is, I think they've offered a similar deal like to that.
Right.
But I don't think that's the deal that he's looking for. He's looking for a different deal. And to his point, I think he feels like he's bailed out the team before in this spot. And he was a good teammate, and he should be rewarded for that and his play, which he's been a great tight end for a long time.
Absolutely. I mean, anybody, if you sign a contract with an employer, no matter what your line of work is, and the employer says, let me put a couple of more years on the end of this to help us out with the cap, and then by the time those 2 years come up, you can't renegotiate to try to make sure you're getting the biggest piece of the pie you could get, that's a little on the shady side.
Well, again, I don't know the exact discussion.
Right, but I'm saying operating
on a general theme. They approached him.
Right.
More years got, to help out. More years got added on. I'm sure he got something. I mean, it wasn't like they said, "Oh, and let us just add on 2 more years, so you're in trouble here." Like, he got something too.
Oh, sure.
Right, but it was as I understand it, it was their idea, and he was helping them out. Now, again, like I said, he had to have gotten something. Let's not be naive here.
Of course.
But again, I think that he might not be in this spot today if they hadn't gone to him for help.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely, absolutely. Schefter, I really appreciate you coming on as always. The last question.
Boy, I'm going to have to come up with another Zach Ertz update for next week.
Yeah, right?
I just like how you say, funny, I ask. But, Schefter, probably the most pertinent question I'll ask you. The last two things for you. One, have you seen the movie Invincible?
No. Who's in that?
It's the Vince Papale story. It stars
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. No, I saw that.
Yeah, of course you did.
Jamie.
You're a normal human being.
Born and bred Philadelphia area guy. He has not seen the movie Invincible, and right now 85% of our voting audience has seen the movie Invincible.
Well, I'll tell you something about that movie that's interesting. They had a premiere in New York City, and it was before I married my wife. I was courting her. And it would have been 2006, the summer. Like I can tell you right now, if you look online, I'll bet you that's it came out in July or August or September of 2006, because I remember I was invited to a premiere at a theater in New York City, and I invited my wife, and I said, "Come into the city, and we'll go see Invincible." Look online. I
2006, you got it. You nailed it.
There you go. See that?
Yeah.
So we went to the debut of it at a theater, and I believe Mark Wahlberg was at that debut.
So Mark Wahlberg is the one that we need to thank for putting you two together.
He had a role, except, a couple of days later she broke up with me, so she couldn't have liked the movie that much.
What?
What happened? There's an early breakup?
Well, it's all documented in the book.
Well, as you know, as I texted you while I was on the beach finishing your book, I did read your book, and I read most of it twice. I don't remember she broke up with you.
Wow.
Yeah, that summer it was shortly after we saw Invincible. I've been coming out to her house on Long Island, and I was kind of schlepping my stuff to New York City on the train. I said, "Do you mind if I get a draw just to put my stuff?" And she felt like that was
that's right.
infringing on her
Yeah, Schefter got a little aggressive.
Yeah, Schefter, a little clinger there, but not for nothing.
God,
you want a draw? I don't think this is going to work out.
That's right. Yeah,
too soon.
That's great.
and she still doesn't want to give me a draw. Yeah,
that's terrible.
That's why you're having all that construction going on, Schefter.
Exactly. All that construction is to add more draws so that I can finally get one.
Schefter, just NBA, Schefter for a second, NBA Adam. Doc Rivers, yay or nay if he comes to Philadelphia?
I love that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that guy, there are people in the Clippers organization that want to keep him. And I had him on my podcast about 3 months ago, 2-3 months ago. And that guy I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Oh, my gosh, is he good. Wow. And so I'm all for good people, and he is. And so, to me, the Sixers could learn a lot from that guy, and he could kind of lead them into the future. And I'm down with that choice. We go with that one?
I'm great with that. I'm absolutely great with that one.
What a nice man. What a nice man. And by the way, I had a conversation with Jamie about Greg Ward on my fantasy team. I'll have you know, for the record, my garbage 0-3 ESPN fantasy team that's been beset by injuries. I've lost Michael Thomas, Philip Lindsay, Christian Kirk, Chris Carson, and Russell Gage. I needed a receiver, so I picked up Greg Ward this morning.
Oh, wow.
You know what?
11 targets last week. Not bad.
We need him to step. I don't care about Carson here. We need Greg Ward to step big.
Carson just needs to get that ball to Greg Ward, and things will turn around.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Carson's doing wrong. He's not getting the ball to Greg Ward.
Schefter, you're the man. Thanks so much, brother.
Mark Farzetta with Bob Cooney and Jamie Lynch. Mornings on 97.5 The Fanatic. Philadelphia.